Right now, via Skype, we're being joined by a very special guest from South Africa. It is already early evening there in South Africa. And Dhershnie, I'm going to have you say your whole name so that we make sure we get it right. Tell the folks at home who you are.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Dhershnie Gounder.
And
I'm a medical doctor.
Yes, and I did not know that when we scheduled to have you on the show, because what I knew about you was that you're a parent of a young boy who's on the spectrum, and I just found out that you are not just a doctor, but you are also a DAN doctor and about to become certified for MAPS as well.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. So much to talk about. Tell us, first of all, about your son. How old is he?
So my little boy Sharav is 5 years and 5 months.
And is he your only child?
Yes, and he's my only child.
Okay, so you were a practicing medical doctor and then had a child.
Yes.
And what kind of medicine did you specialize in at that point?
So at that point, I was actually doing just general outpatients care. So lots of patients that would come off the street, aches, pains, flu-like symptoms. Here in South Africa, we have lots of tuberculosis. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I was working basically with lots of patients that had TB and also HIV patients.
Okay, interesting. So then you have this child. At what point did you start to recognize that your child's developmental curve was a little bit different?
So I would say the first thing that started to worry me about Sharav initially was that with each one of his immunizations, he would get really sick. And I'm talking about from birth. At birth here in South Africa, children are given a BCG vaccine, which is a TB vaccine. And his TB vaccine still had pus coming out of it at his 6-week visit. And I asked our pediatrician about it, and he said it was probably because I was exposed to so much of TB that my son's immune system was just really, really strong. So I was actually quite happy with that answer, because I was happy that my son had such a strong immune system.
Right.
And the problem was then that with each immunization, he would spike his temperature, he would vomit, he would have a diarrhea, he would not sleep. And this would go on for between 2 to 3 days, but then he'd bounce back. And I will never forget the day that he didn't bounce back. He was 9 months and 2 weeks old. He went in for his Priorix, which is his measles vaccine. And he got the vaccine, he came home, same thing, vomiting, a little bit of diarrhea. And exactly 7 days later, he spiked his temperature, except the temperature lasted for 5 days. And within those 5 days, we just lost him. He stopped responding to his name. He didn't give us any eye contact. He started to gag on his food. He had the strange habit of wiping the sides of his mouth whenever he ate. I had to go back to giving him completely pureed food, even though he was almost 10 months old. He became sensitive to textures and touch. He was not sleeping. He would wake up 6 times a night. He had diarrhea so bad that it would run up the back of his nappy. So I think the first time I actually started to get a bit worried was when he was 9 months and 2 weeks old, and he had that really febrile illness.
And at what point then, how long from that moment did it take you to get a diagnosis?
So from 9 months, he developed in some areas and not in others. So his gross motor skills sort of still developed. He started to crawl and walk and do all of those things. But whatever babbling he had at 9 months, he just stayed there. He lost his ability to even point. His eye contact was terrible. And I think I sort of worried after that, because he was always restless and just not sleeping. And by 13 months, I went off to our pediatrician to find out why my son wasn't speaking. And I was sent away saying that boys are slow and that I should not worry.
And you know, so many of us around the world hear that, but while I mourn the fact that you were told that, I have to tell you, you admitting that that's what you were told and you are a medical doctor will help so many people because they feel like I should have known better. And so thank you for saying that.
I know, but it's you know, I've heard other parents say that they've been told the exact same thing. Yeah. Boys are slow. So at 13 months, I was sent away. At 15 months, I took him back and I said the exact same thing. My son's not speaking. He seems to be in his own world. He ignores people. The doctor asked him to walk towards him, walk away from him, and then he told me that my son was just showing off. It was the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And he basically sent us away saying that I was being an over-paranoid mother.
Wow.
And because I was a doctor, I was just looking for problems. And yeah, and I was told not to worry. By then, I was tired. I seemed to, I actually lied and got myself into a pediatric neurologist waiting list. Because the waiting lists here in South Africa are ridiculous. You would need to wait like 2 to 3 months to see a pediatric neurologist. And I basically just got myself onto the list. And she actually saw Sharav at 19 months. So it was a 4-month waiting list.
Wow. Wow.
And at 19 months, by that time, I had already read up. I knew the signs. I knew the red flags we were looking for. I would Google. I actually thought he had a sensory processing disorder. And when I was reading about that, I came up about autism, because the thing is, in medical school, nobody teaches you about autism. I didn't know about it.
And again, thank you for admitting that too, because people don't admit that. So I so appreciate what you're saying.